Once you get in a zone, it's kind of like you're in a zone, and there's nothing that can really phase you.
Just being in that zone.
You know he's in the zone. He's making checks.
I just felt like I was in the zone.
Man, I was in the zone that night.
I was in the zone.
You definitely be in the zone.
Just in the zone.
I do feel like I'm in the zone right now, but I feel like we are in the zone. What's up, everyone, and welcome to In the Zone. I'm your host, Brian, and today's episode, for all of those NBA fans that have been waiting oh so long for the finals, this episode is finally here to cure your needs. We are going over, or I am going over, the entire preview of the NBA Finals between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. While many fans are mixed, this video is supposed to give you a little bit of a preview of what to expect, what's going to happen, biggest storylines, a little bit of a recap of how each team got to the finals, and then, as always, my predictions, my picks. But as always, let's start with a recap. So we're going to start with the Pacers. Pacers started round one, beating the Milwaukee Bucks in 5 games, 4-1, and in such a now known as Pacers fashion, if you will, they clinched the series in Game 5 with a 7-point comeback in the final 40 seconds. Then to move on to round 2, they stunned the Cavs in Game 5, or in 5 games, 4-1, including a 7-point comeback in the final 48 seconds of Game 2. On top of that, they ended up taking the first 2 games in Cleveland, which stunned every single fan, whether you're a Cavs, Pacers, or Lakers fan. It stunned you to pretty much your core that the Pacers would take 2 to the number 1 seeded Cavs, or 2 from the number 1 seeded Cavs. Then they move on to the conference finals, where they face a New York Knicks team that's coming in hot, beating the number 2 ranked and reigning NBA champions Boston Celtics. Granted, Jason Tatum was injured in Game 4, but they were still facing them. Beat them in 6 games, the Knicks beat the Celtics in 6 games to then go on and face the Pacers. Now the Pacers face the Knicks. They start out hot. They go 2-0. They take 2 at Madison Square Garden. Then the Knicks come back after being down 3-1. They take at least one more game, stretch it to a Game 6, and end up losing to the Pacers. But with every other series, you can't forget the comeback that the Pacers had in Game 1, down 14 with 2 minutes and 48 seconds left. And on top of all of the comebacks and all of the game performances, Tyrese Haliburton just had to have a really good Game 4 performance where he had 32 points, 15 assists, 12 rebounds, and 0 turnovers in that game. That led them to their first finals appearance in over 20 years. And now they face the league's best Oklahoma City Thunder. It's their league's best team and best record with 68-14 record. And so the Thunder's path is a little bit different. They didn't have as many comebacks, but more blowouts. So in round 1, they swept the Grizzlies 4-0, including the 6th largest victory with their Game 1 victory against Memphis in OKC. They won 131-80, a 51-point margin. Like I said, that's the 6th largest in NBA history for a playoff win, trailing, I think the number 1 was 58 points, I believe. 58 points by the Denver Nuggets and 58 points by the Lakers in NBA playoff history. Then they move on to round 2. They face the Nuggets, who are led by the runner-up of the MVP. At this time, we didn't know who was going to win it. They announced it after this series, but it was the 2 MVP candidates that were facing off against each other. And man, did that series last, and it pretty much live up to all expectations as the Nuggets and Thunder went to Game 7. Now, if you remember, I don't know if you've watched it or not, if you did watch the series, if you didn't, the Nuggets won the first game in OKC, and then OKC won the next, and it went back and forth to take it all the way to a Game 7, where the Thunder ended up winning the series. And in this series, in that Nuggets 7-game series, they ended up making the 15th largest victory margin in NBA playoff history with their Game 2 victory, 149-106. That moved them into the conference finals after their 7 games to face the Minnesota Timberwolves and what many consider the new face of the league, Anthony Edwards. However, the new face could not beat the OKC powerhouse, as OKC ended up winning in 5 games, 4-1. Even though OKC got blown out in game 3, I think it was by 42 points, I believe. It was either 42 or 43 points. But by a 40-plus point win margin, that was the only win the Timberwolves had, as the OKC ended up being able to close out the series. And so that's where each team got here. Now you have OKC, the number 1 seed that many thought were not only going to be in the finals, but were going to win the finals. And you have this Pacers team that seems to have all the luck in the world on their side. So that brings us to the question of what are the biggest storylines in this series? And I'll give you a few. First off, we have the number 1 offense versus the number 1 defense. The number 1 offense is the Indiana Pacers. They are fast, they play well, they move the ball well, and right now they're shooting incredibly well from the 3. And they just seem to have all the luck on their side. If you look at Tyrese Halliburton's game winners, and if you look at specifically his New York Knicks game 1 game winner, where it hits the back iron, bounces like it felt like 20 feet in the air, and then comes straight through the net, had all Knicks fans' hearts dropped, all of them sad, crazy upset. But it's the number 1 offense versus the OKC Thunder's number 1 defense in the league. This is going to be a fun matchup to see who really prevails in this. Is it defense wins championships? Or is it a new generation of offense overpowering any form of defense? It's just a new wave in the new era. The second biggest storyline you want to watch and you want to look out for is, can the Thunder control the pace? Like I said, this number 1 offense, Indiana Pacers, they are incredibly fast. They're very good on breaks. Not saying the Thunder aren't. The Thunder are very good at their sequences after getting a turnover and after their fast breaks. But the Pacers are known for this. The last 2-3 seasons, their identity has been picking up the pace and wearing out the defenses through cardio. That is what they do. And they are extremely good at it, and it is extremely good for them as they've made it multiple rounds and now into the finals this year. So the question is, can the Thunder keep that pace under control and set their own? That's what you're really looking for. Yes, the Thunder did face the Pacers twice in the regular season, and both times they won. However, that second meeting in Indiana was December 26th, and the OKC Thunder had to make an 8-point comeback in the 4th quarter. So that pace is starting to be shown a little bit. Okay, there is an opportunity to possibly get against OKC with that fast-paced ball movement, but it hasn't been shown to fully take out OKC as they were able to make that comeback, led by Jalen Williams, who was able to kind of push that comeback in that December 26th game. The last biggest storyline that I want to mention that you should really watch out for is which pair of stars will show up in this series. With the Pacers, you have Halliburton and Siakam. Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam put up a trio or a triplet of 30 games in that series against the Knicks to help them prevail. And then he also ended up, or at least those 30-point games, led him to winning the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. So you have Halliburton and Siakam, big man guard. They're a really good pair. Will they show up in this series more than Thunder's pair, which is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams? This Shai Williams pair has been unstoppable. They have been extremely good. But the question is, which one will come first? Which one will prevail over the other? Could they both show up? Could neither show up? Maybe one of them only does. It's really going to determine how this series goes, depending on which team stars really show in this series. So that's one of the biggest storylines in my eyes, beside the number 1 offense and number 1 defense. So now if you go into each team's key to victories, this is where I really want to look at it. We're going to start with the Pacers. Massive underdogs. I believe sports betting, at least in Vegas, has them as or has the Thunder as a plus 750 favorite. So 75-1 odds, which is kind of insane. But the Pacers key to the game, they have 3 that they must fill. The first one, you do not want to lose the turnover battle by large margins. You can lose it, that's all fine, but you don't want to lose this turnover margin 21-9 or 25-12. You don't want to lose a big margin. Halliburton ranks as one of the best guards in the league as far as turnovers committed. He does not commit a lot. He has the lowest turnover, or one of the lowest turnovers in the league. You need to keep that going into this series in order to compete with this Thunder team. Second, Indiana, as a team, ranked 3rd in both the regular season and postseason in lowest turnover rate. Again, you have to keep that going if you want a shot to win this series. The second thing that they need to do, the second key to this series to win the series, is to win the three-point battle by a large margin. You can't just win it by a percentage or two. You have to win it by like 3, 4, 5%. Indiana leads all playoff wins right now, or all playoff teams, with a 40.1% three-point mark. It is the best, like I said, of all playoff teams this year. OKC has struggled from deep. They only have a 33.6% three-point mark throughout the team, and this team is typically really like above average in shooting threes. They're not the best team, but they're above average, and they're pretty much usually really good. So for them to be this low is kind of shocking, but the other issue with this is that they've been able to prevail, which is why if they shoot 33% and Indiana shoots 36%, Indiana may not even win that game. Indiana must shoot a much larger three-point percentage than the Thunder in order to even have a chance to win this series. The third and final key for the Pacers is they must win close games. You have to win close games if you're going against the OKC Thunder. There is no other option. Yes, I am fully expecting, and I think everyone should fully expect, at least one blowout win. One or two, maybe. Because OKC has had at least one 30-point or 30-plus point win in each of their series. They had one against Memphis, they had one against the Nuggets, they had one against the Timberwolves. Expect a blowout. It might come early, but the key to this game is not who can blow out who more, it's who can win the close games. Because there are going to be a lot more close competitive games, especially with this Pacers pace, than there will be blowouts. And so for that reason, the Pacers must win these close games. And just for a little bit of a stat to maybe help those Pacers fans out that are maybe feeling a little doubtful, the Pacers are 7-1 in clutch games in the playoffs this year. They're 7-1. So right now, at least according to the history of this year, their luck for close games is on their side. But you have to make sure that you close out these games and that you win the close games in order to take this series. And that right there are the three reasons why, are the three keys to how the Pacers can win this series and take home that Larry O'Brien trophy. Now, as for the Thunder, I really just have two. First off, it's very simple. Continue to do what you did in the regular season. Dominate. You just got to continue. A 68-14 record just doesn't happen. It has to be a domination, and they have. They're 6, I believe it's 32-6 at home, I believe is the record. They only lost 6 games at home, and they only lost 8 games on the road. Neither one was a double-digit loss on home or away. The key to this is to just continue doing. Don't get over your head like, oh, this is the fastest team will play, oh, this is all the paces will play, or don't even get to the point where you're getting big-headed or airheaded, where you're sitting there going, oh, we're so good, we can just underestimate the Pacers. Because if you look at the Knicks, you look at the Cavs, and you could argue if you look at the Bucks, all three of those teams you could say maybe underestimated the Pacers. And for that reason, the Thunder should not be coming in going, this is going to be an easy sweep. Have confidence, but don't have cockiness. That's the difference. So continue to do what you did, dominate, and that will be a big key into how this series will play out. The second and final one for I have the Thunder is continue to control the turnover differential, especially in this playoffs. Right now, the Thunder are forcing more turnovers than any other team with 18 per game. Their defense is forcing the other team to turn over the ball 18 times per game, which is more than any other team right now. In addition, they're averaging fewer turnovers on offense than any other team as well, with 11.6 per game. So being able to make your opponent turn over the ball the most of any team and committing the least amount of turnovers on offense is a huge formula for success, especially in the playoffs this year, and usually in the playoffs any year, but specifically this year as we've seen it with multiple different teams. You look at the Pacers, Knicks games, you look at the Nuggets, Thunder games, you look at any real series, and you can see that the most pivotal games came, and the most pivotal games were decided by the turnover margin difference and the turnover battle between the two teams. So you have to make sure you keep up that number one turnover forcing rate and the number one turnover commitment rate. Now, in addition, the 6.4, just for a little bit of like history and cool stats, the 6.4 per game margin that OKC has right now, and as far as turnover differential between committing and forcing, would be the largest ever for any team that played multiple series since the league began tracking turnovers in 1973 to 74. So once again, if you can keep that up like you did all throughout the regular season, like you dominated, like you forced turnovers and committed less turnovers, if you can keep that up through this series, just one more series, at minimum 4 games, at most 7. That's all you need to keep it up for. You, the OKC Thunder, will take home their first ever championship. So, with all of that information out there, kind of a lot, kind of thrown at you, I'm going to give you my predictions. And as much as I would love to say, sit here, be on a soapbox and say, the Pacers will take this home, I just don't think they can. And it's not them, it's just that their opponent is so dominant and so good. They have the reigning MVP for a reason. They have such a young core that is so good, and their depth is even better. They have veterans like Caruso and Hartenstein that have that experience, at least in the playoffs, and Caruso in the finals. And you have the young talent that can run for hours and days, for whatever amount, minutes, hours of the games. You have the greatest mix of young and old talent, experience and youth, that I just think it'll be too much for the Pacers to be able to overcome. Now, with that said, I don't think it's a sweep. I think it'll be a 4-2 win as far as series games go. So the Thunder will win it in 6. I do feel that the Pacers will take at least one of the first 2 games in OKC. Personally, I think it's going to be game 1. I think they're going to take game 1 specifically for the fact that I think OKC, after playing Timberwolves, Nuggets, and Memphis, which are decently fast teams, but they don't have the pace that is equivalent to the Pacers. For that reason, I think they're going to drop game 1 because they're going to get acclimated to that pace. But once they get acclimated to it, I have a win. Maybe the Pacers take 1 at their home, and then a win-win. So that'll be 4-2. They'll win it back in Indiana against the Pacers for the Larry O'Brien Trophy, which they'll get in 6 games. Now, as far as Finals MVP goes, I think this is a pretty easy answer. It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. As long as he shows up and does what he's been doing for the last 82-plus games, he's going to win MVP. He's going to win Finals MVP. And I believe, if I heard correctly, I think I was watching First Take earlier, and they said he would be the first player ever to have Finals MVP, MVP, and Western Conference MVP, or Western Conference Finals MVP. So it's going to be fun. I think he'll end up taking it home. But nonetheless, I don't think this series between the Thunder and the Pacers will be anything less than spectacular and fun to watch. You're going to have the number 1 offense versus the number 1 defense. You're going to have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a 26-year-old guard, going against Tyrese Halliburton, another 26-year-old guard. They're 2 upcoming stars that are going to be facing off. And on top of that, you have 2 of the deeper teams, if you will. Now, granted, the Pacers don't have like the names as far as, the Celtics may have or so forth, but the Pacers still have a really solid deep team, and OKC obviously has one of the deepest and youngest teams out there. On top of that, these are 2 of the youngest teams in the entire league. Again, when I was watching First Take this morning, I heard this is the youngest combination of teams that met in the finals ever in the NBA, in NBA history. So out of all the championships they've ever had, this is the youngest age average between the 2 teams that we have ever seen. So this is going to be fun, and this might even be a foreshadow for 2 dynasties that we might see in the future. Pacers were in the conference final last year. Pacers are in the finals this year. OKC was going up to they went up in the second round last year. Obviously ran into Luka Doncic and the Mavs, but now they're in the finals this year, and they're probably going to be contending for the next few years because they have their young core under contract, and their young core, and I think they have like 14 picks over the next 6 years, which is ridiculous. So with all that said, I think this will be a very fun matchup. And as much as the Twitter fans and social media fans are sitting there going, this is going to be so boring, we don't know anyone, this is not like fun teams, I actually would say that's incorrect, and I think it's the opposite. I think this is one of the most fun matchups we could get just due to the youth, the athleticism, and the way these 2 teams play. So with all that, I hope you guys enjoy it. The first game is Thursday, June 5th at 8:30. I can double check real quick. I believe it is 8:30 that game will be taken off. And so, yes, Thursday, June 5th at 8:30 p.m. That is the first game. Make sure you go watch it if you can. I doubt that it will be anything but exciting. I think this would be a thrilling series to watch. And until the next episode, I will see you guys all later. And remember to always stay in the zone because that's where the best are found. See ya.